Okay, folks, so what you see here is another male Ashe Juniper. I'm going to do this a little differently than I did in my last tree trimming video. I'm going to take you around the tree first and try to explain what I'm trimming and maybe why I'm trimming it. This tree I've been working on for probably a little bit longer than the other tree. And so it's a bit more further along. It's going to need a lot less work. I don't know if you can see it right now. Try to get you closer, you can see it. But if you look, the limbs that are there are a lot smaller in diameter than the other tree. So in the bonsai community, as you get these smaller limbs coming out of the main trunk, and they continue to get smaller and smaller, eventually you get, I think the term they use is ramification. You get the level of ramification that they're looking for, which basically just means that you have mature branches that have terminated small enough that the tree looks a certain way. And in the bonsai world, they want it to look like, they want a miniaturized version of an extremely large old tree, which is kind of what I'm going for with these garden trees. So when I'm talking about getting bud back, I am talking about getting these smaller limbs to come out of the larger trunk. Then I'm gonna keep it at that size by trimming it every year, which will generate leaf mulch for me to use in my garden, which I've already talked extensively in other videos about how useful that is in a cross timbers permaculture situation, how useful it is to convert soil. So let's take you around and explain a little bit of what I'm gonna do to this tree. So on this left side, you can see several limbs growing out this direction and actually growing towards the camera. When I do that angle, you'll see them coming out this way. And those have to go because I have an aerobic septic and I don't want any of these limbs on top of it. One of the main reasons why I was going after this tree is because it had huge limbs. I don't know if you can see it. Yeah, you can see the trunk here that's been cut. And it was growing right on top of the aerobic septic. So if the tree ever fell, limbs ever fell, if I ever wanted to cut the tree, it was very difficult and precarious to get it out of there because it could smash the septic. So any limbs that are growing this direction, and this direction towards the camera is the south side of the tree. So they're always gonna have a tendency to wanna grow that way. So I'm gonna be a lot more aggressive on these limbs on this side of the tree to cut them because they're gonna grow faster. And you can see we have three trunks, kinda. Really, I don't know if it technically counts as three trunks, but for what I'm going to describe here, it's three trunks. And eventually, the trunk's going, I'm probably only going to keep the trunk going this way. It all depends on how the tree buds back. But the reason why I want to cut as many on this side is, again, to get them away from the septic. But I haven't decided yet. The tree next to it is a female tree. And because these male trees were so huge, you can see there's hardly any leaves here for the female tree. Almost all of her leaves are here on the south side. So this will be a different video, but what I've been doing here is pruning this side back to create bud back and a more well-structured tree on this female. But on this female, I generally don't cut her very much because I don't want to impede her growth. The male trees I do want to impede and use them as mulch mines because, well, they're male trees. They produce pollen that I'm allergic to and most people are allergic to. They don't really provide any food for wildlife. The only thing they provide is nesting area, which I'm gonna leave deciduous trees and female trees in their place and kind of basically speed up the natural forest succession that would happen as deciduous trees overtake the conifer here. So the other thing that I want to point out is I want to be taking the height out of the tree. You probably can't see it through the brush, but these trunks that I pointed out, I've actually topped this. This tree used to be much taller, so I've actually cut them all off like right around there. And then this is just growth that happened afterwards. It's always going to want to grow that way instead of budding downward. So I'm going to basically just cap it all off, and I might even cut it down lower so it won't have a tendency to bud up high. That's another thing that I will do. So let's get a different angle. Okay. Then from this angle, you can kind of see how these limbs are growing out towards the south, which would be on top of the septic if I let them go. So I really want to stay on them and prune them out. And I'm going to try to keep a conical shape on the tree, and one that lets light into the lower branches. And two, by cutting it that way, it encourages bud back lower, because I want to get these trees as short as possible, so when I get old and my knees go bad, I don't have to climb up so high. You can see the diameter of some of these limbs. You can see they're not very large, maybe an inch in diameter. Now the north side of the tree, you can see, I don't know if the sun's gonna bleach it out. Try to get a nice shot for you. You can see almost no growth on the north side of the tree, which makes sense. The sun's never over here. So one thing I'll point out is this limb here. You can see how you have all this growth right there. Almost all of that I want to take out, and that way it will encourage this bud back that happened down lower. So those are the kinds of things that I'll be doing. Taking out the topmost stuff like this, and leaving most of this stuff and just deadheading that. So that's basically, you can see it's not going to be a huge operation. Not a ton of leaves to cut. All right, so as usual, tools of the trade is just a pruning saw and a pair of loppers. Of course, you see the ladder, and I got a pair of safety glasses on. At first, I'm going to work down low and take out those long limbs I told you about that are growing towards the south. And last, I'll probably crawl up and do the very top. So I'm gonna be on the back side of the tree. Let's move that camera, see more of what I'm doing. So you can see now those limbs don't come so far out here on the left, on the south side of the tree. Likewise, this angle, not so much. And what I'm going to be going for here, actually, probably not a good idea to move you to this side because the sun's not in my favor. Okay, so you see this tuft all the way at the top. That guy's got to get a massive haircut. It's just too tall. And I've got some bud back. I'm not sure if it's showing here, but got some bud back right around here. And that's what I want to favor. But that bud back can't get very much light because of what's on top of it. So I don't know if I'm going to take all of that stuff out at the top, but I'm going to take as much as I can. All right, so what you should be seeing is a giant ball of sunlight. I left a few limbs up there, as you can see. So by doing that, it does make the tree send sap up the tree. And by doing that, that little bunch of leaves just a little bit below it, which should be a little bit more visible now. Let's see if it's coming out here. Not quite sure, but right around here, you should see a tuft of leaves on that trunk. So that is by far the larger tuft on that trunk, but it's not a big ball of leaves. So it may not be enough by itself to draw the sap up to feed it so it can grow and get bigger. And it may not be enough to actually cause bud back. So you have to leave enough foliage that the tree will still be induced to send sap up to the areas you want it to grow. So by leaving that little bit at the very, very top, it should make it draw sap up at least for a little while and encourage some bud back lower. And then probably later in the summer, maybe in the fall, I'll finally go ahead and finish it off and take that entire top part out. As I mentioned, this bit over here, see if it's right here on this far side right there, I want that to be the main, eventually the only surviving part of the trunk or of the tree. So I'm not really going to interfere with its growth too much, but if you look, I'll down here, you can see I got a honeysuckle underneath the tree. That's for the microclimate, but I don't want the leaves to grow too far over the top of that just yet. So I got a little trimming to do there, not very much. Probably take about 6 inches off the tips on a couple of those. And I'm going to leave that full of leaves. And that'll be it for that side, because that's the side I want to grow the most. The next big part will be this tall part way over here, right there. I'm going to go attack that here in a little bit. But first, I need to go after this left side. Okay, so I'm gonna go after this left side here. Just a couple little trims, and then I'll take out that tall part I spoke of, and that should be it on this tree. I'm not gonna get the conical shape I want right now, but I kind of have to work with the tree. Right here, this big old tuft. That's what we're going after next, and I plan to drastically reduce its height. Okay, maybe it's not that drastic. All right, so I think that's going to be it for this tree today. I'm going to drop that ladder out of the way and then take y'all around the tree. So hopefully you can see the difference. Okay, so hopefully you can see this. My viewfinder's washed out because of the sun, but this is just so you can see the differences. You can see how this topmost part is trimmed way down, like I spoke of before. Same on this trunk. Now you can see where it was previously cut off up there. And what I've done is I've basically stripped it bare for the last 6 inches, so nothing will grow above it anymore. That tuft that I left here is to draw sap up. So this tuft down here lower, bring you around the other side where you can see it easier. This tuft here, which is lower, should still get sap easily and grow. At least for now, that's what I want. I mentioned before, this trunk, this large trunk, is eventually going to go away. And you can see it will give me a nice straight post for building. All right, so this tuft down here is not very big. this lower tuft on this second trunk. And I didn't really trim it very much. So hopefully it will now get more light. And the trunk that I'm wanting to save for the future, come around here, this one coming off to the right, that one you can see I left a substantial amount of growth down low. And what I've got up here up top, still pretty substantial, but that's okay because it probably always will be substantial. I might let it grow that tall because that's only probably like 12 feet or so. And that's a manageable height. And it's lower than the female tree, which will give that female tree an advantage to take over. And once she grows enough, I might take this male tree completely out or leave it just for living trellis for the honeysuckle and whatever else I may grow there. I know that some Malabar spinach grows here in the summer. Now you might notice there's a little oak tree here. And I may even let that grow, but most likely I'll bonsai it and dig it up and then pot it. But there you go, folks. There's the final product. And you can see on the ground, you can see all the little mulch that it generates, which is very easy to cut up. Don't need a wood chipper once you get a tree ramified to this point. Ramified, it's probably not even a word. Ramification, whatever.